December 23, 1994. FBI agents surround a Boston safe house, ready to arrest the most violent gangster in the city, but someone has tipped him off. He is not there already. The tipster, an FBI agent. Whitey Bulger climbs for 16 years to the top 2 on the most wanted list, right behind Osama bin Laden. But here's what makes this different from every other manhunt. The FBI didn't fail to catch Bulger. They protected him. For 20 years, agents shielded him from prosecution, warned him about wiretaps, and fed him the names of witnesses planning to testify. Those witnesses? Dead. 19 bodies buried across New England while federal agents looked away. The FBI didn't fail to catch a monster. They created one and protected him for 30 years. How did a gangster manipulate the FBI into becoming his personal hitman? And what finally destroyed his untouchable empire? 1975, South Boston. Gang warfare is ripping the city apart. Bullets cut the winter air as rival mobsters battle for territory. James Whitey Bulger, a feared Winter Hill gang member, knows the streets are turning into a bloodbath. The Italian mafia wants him dead, and the police want him in cuffs. His survival odds lowering by the day. Bulger isn't just fighting a war. He's outnumbered on 2 fronts. Mafia soldiers on one side, law enforcement on the other. He needs a third option, something radical. And that's when fate hands him an opportunity in the form of John Connolly, a hometown kid turned FBI agent. Connolly knew Whitey as an 8-year-old. He was his idol because he rescued him from a beating by local toughs. That memory crystallized into hero worship. Now Connolly is 35. An ambitious FBI agent desperate to make his name in the Bureau's Boston office. The FBI's obsession is dismantling the Italian mafia, and Connolly believes his childhood idol holds the key to cracking it open. One winter night in 1975, Connolly arranges a secret meeting. A parked car on Quincy's frozen beach, windows fogged from the bitter cold. 2 Southie boys sitting on opposite sides of the law, for now. The younger man makes his pitch. Help us destroy the Italians and we'll protect you from prosecution. We'll make your problems disappear. Bulger's gut screams trap. He despises informants, has killed men for less. But Connolly plays his ace. The mafia is already ratting out Bulger's crew to federal agents. Gennaro Angiulo has sources inside law enforcement feeding him information. If they're snitching on you, why not snitch on them? Bulger's mind runs the calculations. This isn't surrender or betrayal. This is leverage. This is power. He leans forward, locks eyes with the agent, and sets his terms. I won't be called an informant, he growls. I'll be your strategist. I'll give you guidance, but I'm not a rat. Connolly agrees without hesitation. No paper signed and no formal handshake. Just 2 men from the same broken neighborhood sealing a partnership that will corrupt an institution, shatter dozens of careers, and bury 19 bodies across New England. Bulger walks into the frozen night officially designated a top echelon informant for the FBI. In his mind, he hasn't sold his soul. He's hijacked the system. He's found a glitch in the machinery of law enforcement and plans to exploit it ruthlessly. Not just use the FBI, but control them. Now, standing in the cold Boston air, Bulger has one thought burning behind those ice-blue eyes. Play this arrangement perfectly and you can own this city. The FBI will collect mafia scalps for their trophy case and press conferences. Bulger will collect territory, tribute, and anyone foolish enough to cross him. There's one rule neither side spoke aloud. Betray the partnership and face destruction. But Connolly made a fatal error. He assumed Bulger needed the FBI's protection more than they needed his intelligence. And he was catastrophically, fatally wrong. What would the FBI overlook to keep their golden informant producing? And when Bulger started treating federal agents like personal employees, would anyone have the courage to stop him? The deal delivers faster than Connolly ever promised. Within a few years, the unholy alliance between Bulger and the FBI erases Italian organized crime in New England. By 1981, FBI surveillance bugs hidden inside the Angulo brothers' headquarters in Boston capture them on tape discussing extortion, loan sharking, and murder. The recordings are devastating. 2 years later, RICO indictments gut the Patriarca crime family's entire leadership structure. Gennaro Angulo receives a 45-year sentence. Boston's Italian mafia collapses in spectacular fashion, bosses imprisoned, rackets in chaos, and territory up for grabs. And who steps into that vacuum with open arms? Whitey Bulger and his Winter Hill gang. The FBI had delivered his competition's empire on a silver federal indictment. They'd eliminated his enemies and handed him the keys to the kingdom. Bulger graduates overnight from mid-level offender to untouchable crime boss. His Winter Hill gang absorbs drug trafficking networks, loan sharking operations, and illegal gambling enterprises. Every major racket in Greater Boston now answers to Whitey. And all the while, the FBI celebrates its triumph. John Connolly becomes the Boston office's golden boy, collecting awards and commendations for crushing La Cosa Nostra. His supervisor, John Morris, enjoys the arrest statistics and positive press coverage. Nobody asks uncomfortable questions about where the intelligence originates. Nobody examines why one particular informant seems immune to scrutiny. As long as the Bureau is winning, inconvenient details stay buried. Meanwhile, Bulger tests the limits of his federal immunity. Small-time bookies who refuse to pay protection disappear from their usual haunts. Underworld rivals surface in shallow graves, or don't surface at all. A trail of corpses that would trigger a massive federal task force against any other criminal mysteriously generates zero FBI interest when connected to Bulger. One Massachusetts state trooper mutters to colleagues, "Does this guy have a badge we don't know about?" Every investigation that touches Bulger's name stalls inexplicably. Files vanish from desks, wiretaps go dead, even surveillance operations get compromised within days. It's as if someone inside law enforcement is protecting him at every turn. Because someone is. But here's where Bulger's operation goes from corrupt to genuinely insane. While the FBI protects him from prosecution for murders on American soil, Bulger starts arming terrorists overseas. And the FBI knows about it and does nothing. The IRA connection. Bulger is Irish-American to his core, born to immigrant parents from Galway and Cork, and in the 1980s he decides to weaponize that heritage. The Provisional IRA, classified as a terrorist organization by both American and British governments, needs guns. They're planting bombs, sniping British soldiers, kidnapping and killing, and Whitey Bulger becomes their American arms dealer. Let that sink in. An FBI informant is supplying weapons to terrorists. In the early 1980s, Bulger ships his first delivery, guns and a block of C4 plastic explosives packed in a van and sent overseas to IRA operatives. But that's just the warm-up. He will send millions worth of drugs, arms, and equipment to terrorists all over the planet while the FBI works for him. How do you purchase that kind of loyalty? Cash and secrets. Bulger understands both currencies. He and his partner, Stephen Flemmi, funnel $235,000 to Connolly over the years in payments disguised as Christmas bonuses and friendly gifts. Envelopes of $100 bills appear on certain agents' desks each December. John Morris receives cases of expensive wine and first-class airline tickets to vacation destinations, perks of friendship with Whitey. And for those who won't accept bribes, Bulger wields another tool: terror. Everyone in Boston's underworld knows that crossing Whitey means getting buried in an unmarked hole. Most agents decide the wine tastes better than a coffin feels. Why risk your life investigating a man who can reach you anywhere? By the mid-1980s, a grotesque inversion has taken hold in Boston's FBI office. The Bureau isn't running Bulger as an informant. Bulger is running them as his personal protection service. Connolly and Morris begin covering up their own complicity to save their careers and stay out of prison. Every successful mob bust built on Bulger's intelligence deepens the Bureau's dependence on him. They need his tips to make cases and advance careers. He needs their blindness to make bodies disappear. It's a mutual addiction dressed in government letterhead. Boston pays the price in blood. A blood that will later inspire the famous show about Raymond Reddington, one of our favorites, by the way. Under this federal umbrella of protection, Bulger's brutality escalates without consequence. In 1982, a low-level criminal named Brian Halloran approaches the FBI with information linking Bulger to a murder. Halloran is terrified. He knows he's risking his life, but hopes federal protection will keep him breathing. Connolly's response is to tip Bulger immediately that Halloran might testify. Days later, Halloran is ambushed leaving a waterfront bar, gunned down in a drive-by attack, and his body riddled with bullets. An innocent bystander named Michael Donahue, a father of 3 who happened to give Halloran a ride, dies in the crossfire. The killers escape into the night, and the FBI closes Halloran's informant file. Problem solved. Case closed. Halloran wasn't the last to die for the crime of threatening Whitey Bulger. Over the years, Bulger develops a sixth sense for potential informants and witnesses, because Connolly feeds him their names directly from FBI files. Anyone who might testify becomes a target. One suspected informant is lured to a meeting with promises of partnership, chained to a chair in a basement and interrogated about what he told the feds, then strangled and buried in concrete. Medieval justice delivered with a federal wink and nod. The FBI knew, or chose not to know, and either way, the bodies accumulated. Yet officially, Bulger remains a valuable intelligence asset helping the Bureau crack organized crime cases. Local Boston police and Massachusetts State Police watch their investigations collapse repeatedly whenever they touch Winter Hill operations. Rumors circulate through law enforcement. The FBI must have a mole. Worse, maybe the Boston office is rotten from the leadership down. But FBI headquarters sees only the scoreboard. Mobsters convicted, headlines celebrating the fall of La Cosa Nostra, and congressional appropriations increasing. But what happens when a man believes he's genuinely untouchable? And how long can a house of cards this corrupt stand before the whole structure collapses? For over a decade, Bulger's invisible armor held strong against every threat. But by the early 1990s, hairline fractures begin to spider across his shield of corruption. It starts with outsiders smelling something rotten in Boston. Federal investigators in Washington and honest cops in Massachusetts notice the bizarre pattern. Bulger and his right-hand man, Flemmy, seem immune to prosecution while every associate falls. Other gangsters get decades in prison. These two roam free. Massachusetts State Police hates the FBI's constant interference. They've watched their wiretaps and stakeouts fail suspiciously often, compromised within days of activation. They plant a bug in a Winter Hill meeting spot. Bulger immediately stops using that location. Coincidence strains credibility past the breaking point. By 1993, whispers reach the Boston Globe and Justice Department inspectors. Could Whitey Bulger actually be an FBI informant? The accusation is nuclear. If true, it means the Bureau enabled a serial killer for 20 years. Inside the Boston FBI office, John Morris feels the walls closing in. He knows exactly what he did: the wine, the cash, the airline tickets, the cover-ups. He knows that exposure means federal prison and the destruction of everything he built. In a moment of self-preservation disguised as conscience, Morris quietly confesses to a DEA agent. Bulger and Flemmy are protected informants, and some FBI agents are corrupted. The admission ignites a firestorm. An internal FBI investigation launches, and the Justice Department task force begins excavating Boston's secrets with subpoenas and grand jury testimony. John Connolly, retired from the Bureau since 1990, catches wind of the rumbling through his underworld contacts. He's no longer the golden boy. He's a man with a lot to hide and the target growing on his back. Meanwhile, Bulger senses the atmospheric shift. His FBI contacts grow skittish, some cutting off communication entirely as internal affairs investigators start asking dangerous questions. The underworld feels the tension crackling through every transaction. And then comes the final detonation. In late 1994, Connolly learns through back channels that a secret RICO indictment is being prepared against Bulger and Flemmy. Federal prosecutors outside Boston's corrupted circle have built the case in complete isolation, sharing nothing with the local FBI office. They're going to arrest Whitey, and if Bulger faces trial, he'll bargain for a reduced sentence by exposing every dirty agent who protected him, every bribe, every tip-off, and every covered-up murder. It would be catastrophic for the Bureau's reputation, and certain agents would face decades in prison. Connolly makes a fateful choice in that moment. Loyalty to his oath as a federal agent, discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Loyalty to his old pal from the housing projects, absolute and unshakable. On December 23, 1994, Connolly picks up the phone and dials Bulger one final time. The message is short. "They're coming for you, it's over. Get out now." Bulger doesn't hesitate for a second. He's been preparing for this moment for years. Cash stockpiled in safe locations, forged passports ready, and escape routes memorized. He thanks Connolly, hangs up the phone, and disappears into the frozen Boston night. When FBI agents and Massachusetts state troopers execute the arrest warrants in early 1995, Whitey Bulger is smoke on the wind, leaving behind empty apartments and furious prosecutors. The news hits Boston like a bomb blast. The city's most infamous gangster, a man responsible for at least 19 murders, has vanished without a trace, warned by someone inside the FBI. In the days and weeks that follow, the ugly truth unravels publicly. Media exposés confirm the unthinkable. Bulger operated under FBI protection for 2 decades. Congressional hearings demand answers and accountability. The Bureau has no choice but to acknowledge grave misconduct in its Boston office. Connolly quietly resigns before he can be fired. Morris cooperates with investigators to save himself, confessing to years of cover-ups, bribery, and obstruction. Careers end in disgrace and reputations incinerate overnight. The FBI vows reforms to ensure this catastrophe can never happen again, but the damage is done. Public trust in the Bureau, especially in Boston, lies in rubble. Yet one element of this saga remains unresolved: Whitey Bulger himself. He's not dead, he's not in custody. He's out there somewhere with a massive head start, decades of experience operating in shadows, and intimate knowledge of exactly how the FBI hunts fugitives. How do you catch a man who spent 20 years learning your every surveillance technique from the inside? And where does a gangster hide when his face is plastered on every post office wall in America? Bulger doesn't just vanish. He evaporates into thin air like morning fog. In the first weeks after his escape, sporadic sightings scatter across continents: Montreal, London, New York, Ireland, even as far as Uruguay. FBI task forces chase each lead, burn through millions in resources, and find nothing but ghosts and lookalikes. It's as if Whitey stepped through a door into another dimension. In truth, he's hiding in plain sight on the open American road. Bulger has prepared for this moment meticulously. Over the years, he assembled multiple identities, complete with documentation, even hijacking the identity of a deceased man to craft a convincing new persona. Now those ghost identities spring to life. Bulger and his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Greig, begin an odyssey through quiet American towns, always moving, never establishing patterns. He carries hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. He avoids phones, too easily traced. No emails, no credit cards, nothing electronic. Communication happens the old-fashioned way: payphones, handwritten letters, or absolute silence. To the FBI's mounting frustration, their former asset proves devastatingly skilled at counter-surveillance. He studied their methods for 20 years while pretending to help them. Now he weaponizes that education against them. Tips pour in from around the world. Task forces chase each one. Every lead fizzles into nothing. At one point, Bulger reportedly slips through a trap in Louisiana. A Chicago lead goes cold overnight. He seems to exist everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. By the early 2000s, Bulger has climbed to number 2 on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, only behind Osama bin Laden. For context, he's considered the most wanted domestic criminal in America. The reward for his capture is $2 million. Yet year after year, nothing. You can imagine Bulger in some nondescript apartment watching television coverage of bin Laden's 2011 death, knowing with cold satisfaction that he's now the top name on that infamous list. The pressure on the FBI is crushing and humiliating. Their own creation, their own monster, is making them look like fools on the global stage. Desperation breeds creativity at the Bureau. Agents shift focus to Catherine Greig, reasoning she's easier to identify than a master of disguise. In 2011, they run television advertisements targeting women her age, highlighting Greg's fondness for cosmetic procedures and regular dental work. An unusual investigative tactic, but the FBI is out of conventional options. Then a break materializes from an unexpected source. Iceland. A woman, a former Miss Iceland no less, remembers a friendly older couple from her time living in Santa Monica, California. The woman went by Carol Gasco and was known for doting on a neighborhood stray cat, a tabby named Tiger, that she fed outside her apartment every single day. The Icelandic woman sees the FBI's Greg advertisement and connects the face. Carol Gasco is Catherine Gregg, which means Charlie Gasco, her quiet, elderly husband, is almost certainly Whitey Bulger. She contacts the FBI immediately. After 16 years of phantom chases across the globe, they finally have a solid lead, and it came down to a stray cat. June 22nd, 2011, Santa Monica, California. Undercover agents stake out a modest pink apartment building 2 blocks from the Pacific Ocean. It's a world away from the gritty bars and blood-stained streets of South Boston. Bulger, now 81 years old, shuffles around the neighborhood as Charlie, an aging retiree who keeps to himself. Neighbors know Charlie and Carol as a polite, cat-loving older couple who never cause trouble. Inside their apartment, Unit 303, lies a different reality. $822,000 in cash hidden in the walls, and 30 firearms, rifles, shotguns, handguns, knives, stashed in specially cut compartments. Bulger has prepared for a last stand if discovered, but he won't get the chance to use any of it. The FBI crafts a simple ruse to draw him out. Someone broke into your storage locker in the garage. Ever cautious, Bulger steps outside to investigate. Agents swarm him in the parking structure before he can react. For a moment, those ice-blue eyes flash defiance. Even at 81, calculating fight or flight, weighing options. But he's surrounded by armed federal agents. Whitey Bulger surrenders quietly. Asked if he's carrying weapons, he answers with dry humor, "Yes, I have knives." He indicates the folding blades tucked in his belt. 16 years as America's most wanted fugitive, and not in a dramatic shootout, but because he couldn't resist feeding a stray cat named Tiger. Bulger and Gregg are extradited back to Boston under heavy armed guard. The city he once terrorized greets him with fury and morbid fascination. His 2013 federal trial exposes the full horror of his reign: racketeering, extortion, money laundering, weapons charges, and 19 counts of murder stretching across 2 decades. Victims' families crowd the courtroom, demanding something Bulger has never provided: genuine acknowledgement of his crimes. The 83-year-old gangster sits stone-faced through testimony, disgusted by one charge above all others: being labeled an informant. His ego still refuses to accept that characterization. He interrupts court proceedings multiple times to denounce the FBI arrangement as fiction. "I was never an informant," he snarls at the judge. "They were my informants. I was the one doing the directing. They didn't run me. I ran them." The jury disagrees with his self-serving narrative. In August 2013, he is declared guilty on 31 counts, including involvement in 11 murders. The sentence is 2 consecutive life terms plus 5 years. What awaits a legendary snitch inside the federal penitentiary system? Does the underworld forgive old men, or does it settle scores with interest? Prison does not provide the quiet epilogue James Bulger might have expected. Even behind bars, the reverberations of his deeds follow him like a shadow. Inmates harbor special loathing for informants. And whether Bulger admits the label or not, the underworld knows exactly what he did for 20 years. After several years shuffled between federal facilities for security reasons, Bulger transfers in October 2018 to USP Hazleton in West Virginia. The move is a death warrant written in bureaucratic ink. Hazleton's penitentiary yard holds mafia hitmen and gangsters who haven't forgotten the Boston snitch who helped destroy their organizations. Less than 24 hours after his arrival, on October 30th, 2018, prison guards find Whitey Bulger slumped in his wheelchair, with the skull crushed and eyes gouged out. He's 89 years old. The killers attempted to cut out his tongue, the traditional underworld punishment for rats. The man who once manipulated the FBI's gaze across an entire city could not escape the brutal judgment of his own kind. And if you think Bulger's manipulation of American institutions was brazen, you haven't seen anything yet. Watch my video on the man who ran a cartel from inside the FBI, where an elite hacker was able to work for the FBI while running one of the biggest dark web marketplaces online. Click it now.